Hey everyone, welcome to the Hire My VA Team and Business Building Podcast, where we help you to reclaim your freedom through hiring and thriving with virtual assistants without breaking the bank and without breaking your bank, which is the most important one. And I am Dave Braun, and I'm here with my partner and my co-host, my good buddy, friend. We spend a lot of time together, crazy dude, Larry Broughton. Hey Larry, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you, Dave? It's good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Thank you.
Are we ready to handle one of these questions?
Let's tackle one of them.
Okay.
Reach into the bin.
Say what?
Oh, we're reaching into the bin. We're going to pull out a question.
Yeah. Let me shuffle it around.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So there's the question.
Okay.
Ready? You sure?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
How do you make your VA accountable for their work time? And related to this, kind of what's a good time tracking tool if you need it? So how do you make your VA accountable for the work time? That's a big concern that people have, that they'll, get their money's worth, right?
Yeah. And I think it's probably the same concern, even if they're not a virtual assistant, but it's actually someone working in your physical office in your brick and mortar space, right? It seems to come down to three areas, Dave, and we can kind of maybe riff on these. And if there's more, then we can do that. But the first one is like communication and communication style. Second one is using project management tools. Mm-hmm. And the third is, some people actually have to track time. Like if you're a per hour company, say you're a CPA or a lawyer or a graphic designer where you pay by the hour, then having some kind of time tracking tool. So are there other kind of three things, and we can kind of rip on those? Or
yeah,
those are the three major, right?
The three major considerations. Yeah, perfect.
All right. So let's start with communication. You want to take communication first, and we can riff?
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's the number one of the three, communication, sure. Right? We got to figure out how we're going to best communicate with them, because that's going to help them to be accountable for their work time. Is how often do they communicate and how do they communicate? Right. One of the things that we were talking about first, but actually before we started recording this, was we need to understand how they would like to be led, or how they would like to be managed. What do they want? Do they want somebody working with them all the time? And do they need that check-in, that often check-in? Checking in throughout the day. Do they need that? And then the other aspect of that is, what do you as a manager need? And that need, though, is not about, you're not going to be hovering over them, like, are you doing your work? That's not the need. The need is, how do you feel you have, how do you feel you want your business to be most productive, and what brings you the most joy? So let me give you an example of what happened with one of our virtual assistants. And he, when I hired him, I didn't understand this or myself as much, but he ended up liking to be just given the task, record a video, and he'd go off and run with it and do it. And he was great and productive, but he did not want to collaborate very much. So his, what he liked is just basically to be left alone and to do his work and be done. And he did great in that, right? And that's how he thrived, right? And I didn't thrive as much with that, but he did. So that's one of the things, that's one of the things that's important to think about.
Well, why didn't you thrive in it?
Because I learned something about myself, is that I really, really love the collaboration part. Because, and that's one of the things that we were talking about, is your business has got to bring joy to you. Right? It can't be drudgery. It's got to, have a little bit of fun. And I like to collaborate. I like to work with people, because just, I feel like we can serve our clients better. We serve each other better. It's just, it's just fun. I've been doing that for, my career. So I wanted to do that. And so when he was working for us, I had that, I really lacked that joy, that enjoyment, that fun. And so I ended up having to make a change at some point.
Yeah. Well, there were other reasons why you need to make a change as well. But I think one of the things that we need to consider is, how do your team members like to receive communication or information? And so I think that's an important question to ask during your hiring process, during the interview process, is to flesh this out a little bit. Flesh it out, I guess, is a better way to say it. Flesh it out a little bit. Because I think that it's really important that if somebody does not want to be micromanaged, that tends to be the term, whether it's accurate or not. People feel like if you're communicating with them regularly, that you're micromanaging them. Other people want to be checked in. Hey, give me the nuts and bolts. What are you expecting from me? And then let's check in along the way. That's kind of how I am. I prefer that. Let's have a conversation in the beginning. Let's have benchmarks along the way. Because what I don't like, this is me personally, but it's my business, and so I'm going to set it up this way, is I don't want to give somebody a task, and then I don't hear anything until the project is complete. Because what if we didn't communicate effectively and they spent all this time developing or spending on this project, and at the end we find out, well, that's not at all.
Yeah, they did the wrong thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I like to have benchmarks along the way. But on the communication side, we're not going to know, Dave, until we built a relationship with this new team member, what works for both of you. This is why we talk about in both the prepare and the hire, and I think we touched on it in the Thrive module as well, is you have to be intentional about your communication. Let's do a 30-day check-in at least, right?
Yeah.
Don't wait until somebody's there, you get to the probationary period before you actually sit down and say, how's it working for you? Am I communicating with you effectively? Are you receiving information effectively? Really have a great dialogue about it before you're totally frustrated. But generally, within 48 hours, whether it's working or not. But out of fear, we tend not to really face the problem. So I would just be very intentional with stating to your virtual assistants, hey, in the beginning, we're going to talk a lot. We spend a lot of time together in the first couple of weeks getting to know each other. But really, I think this communication component is one of the real keys to success and finding out whether you're going to be able to hold your virtual assistant accountable or not.
Yeah. And that communication. So one of the things if you communicate often, it helps, like what you said, is it helps to keep them from going down the wrong path and from going down into the rabbit hole of trying to figure out a problem on their own, when maybe all they have to do is ask you, or you ask them, and then all of a sudden, no, you'll get it covered. Right.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's good. Keep going.
Just say another way to do this is to have standing meetings, right? Yes. Whether it's your morning stand-up that we do in our organization, whether it's a weekly meeting with everybody. I know you got morning and evening check-ins with people. You got to find what works for you. But I promise you, this is one of the problems that we've had in some of our regular calls with the HireMyVA community members, is that some team members feel like, I'm going to hire my VA and they're just going to do the job. That does not work, my friends. And it's not the virtual. That's called
abdication, right?
That's right. Exactly. Right. The success of your VAs has more to do with you than it does with them. That is the responsibility of leadership. You have to set them up for success. Okay. And you're right, Dave, you can't abdicate responsibility, right? So I think you absolutely have to be communicating with folks. Have your standing meetings, check in with them. Your job also is to mentor them, let them know you want this result or better. Don't forget that, right? Here's what I'm expecting or better on this. But we have to communicate that. We can't expect that they're just going to know it just because you hired them. No, this is an investment into your success, right? So having these regular meetings is really important as well.
Yeah, and I think it helps to think about taking this virtual environment that you have, a virtual office, so to speak, and thinking about, how do I make it seem like a regular office? So like you were talking about our daily check-in and check out. Well, typically what we do is check in the morning, say, hey, good morning. Hey, I'm here. Great morning. How's it going? Yeah. And then at the end of the day, they'll say, hey, I'm off for the night. Okay. Yep. That way I know that I don't have to, if I have an issue or something, I want to talk to them, that they're not there. And that's cool. It's just like in an office environment where you say, hey, good morning, everybody. Hey, good evening. Have a great evening. It's just the same thing. If you're passing, you're leaving and passing your staff somewhere, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the next thing, Dave, number 2 that we talked about was project management tools. You are a rock star on this. And I love that you're an early adopter on a lot of these things. You try different project management tools. In the old school project management tools. Like, let's have a Gantt chart, and that's what we're working off of. Well, boy, times have changed, right? Now you've got all kinds of project management tools. So why don't you take the lead on this one?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many out there, some free, some paid, and I mean, you do at some point want to go to a paid version because you want to make sure that that's going to be, you know, around for a while, that tool. But you've really got to have some kind of a project management tool, you know, whether it's a Google Doc or something like that, but you got to keep track of tasks. You assign people those tasks, and then you have them, you know, complete them. You got to have something like that. It just helps communication. If all you're doing is talking verbally and asking them to do things, there are times when that will work, but especially if you're using a virtual assistant from another country, a lot of times it's going to help to, at a minimum, you know, record a video so they can go back to it.
Yeah.
So, but you got to keep track of the tasks, and you know, that's kind of fundamental project management performance.
Yeah.
You know, and the other thing is we talk about in performance reviews, you got to be really careful if you do those, say you do it on a yearly basis, which a lot of companies, you know, big companies don't even do it that often. Managers will tend to evaluate performance based on recent knowledge. So in other words, they will do it based on a feeling of, well, did they do a lot in the last month? Because that's all they remember. They don't remember what happened 10 months ago.
Yeah.
So you've got to really have a system where you know, you kind of keep track of that stuff. And then the other thing that is, you know, it's really got to allow for daily texting or daily communication. You know, you really got to do that.
We're going to have a list of some of the project management tools that we like and recommend in the resource section. But you use Slack, we've used Asana, Basecamp. There's a lot of good tools out there. Do you have one that you really love now?
Yeah, we were using Basecamp, and now we're switching from that to Nifty PM, Nifty PM. Yeah, and it's working really well for us.
Yeah, good. So the last thing that I'd mentioned earlier, if it's somebody who's really keeping track of hours, and maybe just internally, you want to keep track of hours as well. Like we've got it when somebody's going through the program now, is she does not bill by the minute or by the hour, but she wants to track how productive her VAs are. So she tracks every minute that they're doing things. It's some kind of time tracking tool, right? You want to address this for us?
Yeah. So, I mean, you can, some of the project management tools you have out there that you can get, they'll have something in it where you can assign a task and click a button. That's what we're using now. Click a button and saying, and then, you know, it starts your time when you're executing it and then stops when you're not executing.
Yeah, right.
And then, or you can use, I mean, there's a free one called Clockify. There's others that we've got in our program that we recommend that you can try out. But you don't have to do this for everything, but you can do it just when you're wanting to make sure that you're keeping track of productivity and that you are productive too. You can use it for yourself. Right. And
scary.
You know and here's what was interesting is just had a conversation today with Brian, one of our VAs, and he's like, I'm going to start using it on everything so I can be more productive because he wants to be more productive.
Dave, you know, every time we bring on a coaching client, this is one of the first tasks that we have them do is to track their time over a 2-week period. And isn't it always, people are always stunned at where they're spending time because because you're living your life. You're just doing it. Some of it just becomes routine. It becomes a habit. But when you start looking at this, like, oh my, I'm spending this much time and this stuff's way outside my strengths. Oh my gosh. Or we tend to procrastinate. I tend to procrastinate on things. And it's out of fear or I don't like doing it, whatever it is. But once you start realizing I'm spending X number of minutes, whatever it is, it's eye-opening. Okay. So I do encourage people to do what you just got through saying with Brian, track your time. If you ever get into a coaching program, like a one-on-one or a two-on-one coaching program with Dave and I, we're going to ask you to do it anyway. So you might as well, might as well do it. Exactly. It will be eye-opening for you. Right. And again, the whole idea of this program is to gain freedom in your life. Right.
Yes.
You're not going to gain freedom if you don't know where you're spending your time because you will become a prisoner to the task that you're doing right now. And you don't want your VAs doing that either, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, But and the last thing is you talked about freedom. I'm glad you brought that up, because if you are watching them every second of the day like a hawk over the shoulder, what are you working on? I mean, there's no freedom for you in that. And that's just, no matter what, you cannot do that, no matter what.
Yeah. And oftentimes that's done out of fear,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they're ripping me off, you know, that's kind of like, I own you mentality. And I wouldn't want to work under those conditions. If someone is constantly saying, hey, it shouldn't be taking you that much time, you got to look at their entire productivity. Right. And I always ask this, I talk about this micromanaging nonsense in one of the keynotes that I do. And I always ask people, have you ever been micromanaged? Right. And almost everybody raises their hand. How'd that feel? Oh, it sucked. You know, like that. Well, don't do that. Exactly. Right. Don't do it. If you don't trust your team members, they shouldn't be on your team.
Yeah, that's right.
Or you need some real coaching and counseling to figure out, why is it that you need to micromanage?
Yeah. Now there's times when, you know, it's okay to micromanage on a particular thing that maybe they're having some issues with, or something that's very critical to the business, but that really should, I think, be the exception.
Absolutely. And you will more intensely manage people and process when it's a new process or a new person. Mm-hmm. But after that, it should be, here's what I expect. Here's what the goal is. Here's the end. I want this end result or better. And then you have check-ins periodically. You should not be every day or every minute be checking in on them or walking over their shoulder. Like you said, Dave, that does not bring freedom.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, in the Victory Masterclass that we're running through right now, we're going to talk about standard operating procedures and kind of how to do those and get those going. Even those will lead you to some freedom, because you give your team a checklist to do that. Right. So you don't have to watch over their shoulder doing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Okay.
Good. Well, hey, I want to remind folks that I kind of said this earlier. If you want more intensive coaching or mentoring, we do have programs to help you on that as well. You can just send us an email or reach out to Dave and I. You know how to get a hold of us, right? Or Melissa, and we'd be glad to talk to you about a more personalized coaching and mentoring program to really help you launch your business and find your freedom. Because I get sometimes you just get stuck, or there might be a big issue that we haven't addressed yet. Or, by the way, the community is a great place to get feedback. It's one of the most valuable parts of this program is to get involved in the community forum, okay, or the periodic calls that we do.
That's where some of these questions are coming from, is within the community. And this allows us to, we're answering it maybe a little bit better here on the podcast than we're able to do off the top of our heads, because we're preparing. But the community is so valuable, where you can ask whatever you want that's on your brain. We just had a great call last week, right? It was awesome.
I thought it was a good one.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. Well, let's close this one down.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. You know, it was fun. Remember though, that building a team is the way to reclaim your freedom, and we are here to help you. That's why we have the program. We want to see people get freedom in their lives. So we'd love you though right now to do 3 things, and we'd really appreciate it if you did. Number 1, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already done so. And number 2, give us a rating, do a 5-star rating for us. And then number 3 is go to HireMyVA.com for more information on the community that we've got, the course that we've got. It's all right there. There's some free downloads you can get, all kinds of information. So the important thing though is that you need to understand that even without experience, that you can learn how to prepare for, hire, and thrive with virtual assistants. And as we talked about, we've had some great calls. Larry and I are helping folks, and we want to help you too. Just go to HireMyVA.com for more info.
That's right. Thanks, Dave. Hey, folks, do yourself a favor. Do the world a favor. Go do something really, truly significant today. So God bless you. God keep you. God hold you. All right, folks, go get them.
Bye.
I'll see you later.